Welcome to Scandal Water, where the tea is hot and the conversation lively.
Your hosts, Candy
And Ashley,
will discuss a peculiar story somehow related to the entertainment industry. This podcast might not change the world, but it just might satisfy your thirst for an intriguing tale.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1. Stories and scandal water, it's where you need to be. Stories and scandal water, let's pour you a cup of tea.
Hello, Ashley.
hello.
So I'm going to start with an unusual question for you.
Oh, let's hear it.
Are you one of those people who, given the opportunity, likes to walk through houses that are being built?
Being built?
Yes, like in progress.
I don't know about being built, although I have done it. It's kind of cool to kind of picture where you would put stuff or, I don't know, just different things that you would do. I do like walking through houses once they are complete.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I think those are pretty.
You know, back in the day, it used to be much more acceptable if you were like driving around and you happened to notice that this new house was under construction.
You could just get out and walk
You
through it.
could. And Kirk and I used to love to do that.
Really?
Not so acceptable nowadays.
No, I wouldn't think so. They'd be like
not so.
trespassing.
Exactly.
101.
Exactly. But we have always enjoyed looking through a home. We like Home-A-Rama. And I know, because you and I both love history,
Yes.
that both of us enjoy walking through a good historical home as well.
Absolutely.
So while I was doing this research, I was surprised to really notice and think about how many beautiful, famous, notable, and important historic homes are out there.
Yeah.
I mean, we've even done an episode on one.
Yes. Conrad Caldwell House, right?
Absolutely.
We went for Christmas a couple
The
years ago.
candlelight tour, and it was gorgeous. And I know on our own, we've both been to many.
Yes.
Every one of them, beautiful, unique features, things that set it apart from all the others. But we're going to be talking about one today that is so significant. In fact, I looked up this article. It was put out by the Travel Channel. They had a gallery of the most famous home in every state, plus DC, and take a wild guess as to which home won for North Carolina.
I would say the house we're doing the episode on and whose shirt I am wearing.
You are. It's a nice shirt.
Thank you. The Biltmore.
Absolutely. And then I thought, you know what? That didn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I figured it would probably be top for North Carolina.
Is
So
it top for America as well?
Well, I didn't find top
Okay.
one, but I started Googling like top 20 or
Yeah.
top 10. It shows up
Oh,
time
yeah,
and
yeah,
time
yeah.
again. It is accepted as being this gorgeous home. And in fact, it is known as, I didn't know this was a copyright thing, but it is America's largest home. That is its official title.
Okay.
And of course, we know it is a National Historic Landmark. So when I would open these articles, a lot of times the cover picture, the one at the top, would be the Biltmore because it's just so stately. It's so gorgeous. It's so imposing in size.
A chateau.
Yes, we are, of course, going to be doing this episode on the Biltmore.
Finally, we've talked about it
I
so
know,
many
it's come up
times.
so many times. But for those people who may not be very familiar with it, here is a description from that same Travel Channel article that I mentioned. Nestled in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina, you'll find the closest thing Americans have to a royal fairy tale castle. Known as America's largest home, Biltmore was built for George Vanderbilt in 1895. The French Renaissance-style chateau features impressive furnishings such as 16th century tapestries, art by Renoir, and a 10,000-volume library.
So cool.
Just as impressive, the 8,000-acre estate features gorgeous formal gardens and a giant conservatory. And we're going to talk about all that a lot more. But here's the thing. This is not only a gorgeous 250-room home, but if you go to visit, it also offers what I'm going to call an entertainment complex on site.
Oh, yeah.
You have shopping, you have lodging, you have special exhibits, you have a winery. So much going on there. We're going to circle back to all of that. But here's what we want to share with you. There's a backstory to this episode.
A long backstory.
Yeah, a long backstory. This is going to be on the Biltmore, but originally it was going to have a different look. Let us fill you in really quickly. November The theme was a few of our favorite things. This was going to be a field trip episode.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. We had plans to go in person. We had communicated with people about doing some sound bites. We were going to tour and do our reaction. So many things. We're going to go into this. And then Hurricane Helene hit in late September of this year with a devastating impact on so many places and so many people. But one of those places was Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And of course, the Biltmore is right there in the thick of that. A USA Today article that was published on November 20th shared that after almost 2 months, the boil water advisory has finally
just now
been
been
lifted in Asheville and the surrounding western North Carolina area. This is how long this has been going on. And there's still, I mean, there's so much work still to be done. Here is an excerpt that shares a few statistics about Helene's impact on this region. Thousands of residents have been left grappling with the fallout from Helene's historic flooding, high winds, and record rainfall. Homes and businesses were left without power for weeks. Almost 400 commercial buildings in Buncombe County were destroyed or significantly damaged in Helene, including those that housed multiple tenants, according to Clark Duncan, the executive director of the Economic Development Coalition of Asheville-Buncombe County. Businesses not physically destroyed by the storm were hurt by the area's water system's closure. Restaurants, hotels, and other lodging establishments still standing have either been unable to afford to reopen or were investing significant resources in a water broker that delivers water by tankers or cistern, Duncan said. Across the state, Helene damaged or destroyed more than 100,000 homes. According to OSBM, state officials estimate housing damages will cost more than $14.7 billion. Billion. Now, I do want to clarify, we understand and our heart goes out to all the other places that were affected as well from Hurricane Helene and then Milton. I mean, there's so much devastation out there. But because of this episode being about Biltmore, we're focusing in on this because this is some context that is important for us to discuss right now as we go into this episode on Biltmore. In fact, rather than talk more about where they are right now, I think to help us understand the significance of Biltmore.
And the significance of Biltmore to the community as a whole.
Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and just stop here and go into some of the history and the background of Biltmore. So do you want to share anything that's notable to you about its background?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I've talked about it before, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. But what I found, and I probably have said this before, what I found most impressive about the home itself and the building of the home is how much thought went into the planning of it. Like, they went and put a ladder up and had him stand at the top of the ladder and said, "This will be the view to your bedroom. How do you like it?" And it made me come home. When I came home, the effect that it had on me was I need to put more thought and more planning into things in my own life and not just say, well, that'll do. This will go here. Put thought into it because he was thinking ahead of time for history.
Right. So I have been there several times. In fact, the first time I went there, I remembered I was pregnant with Camden.
Oh.
Yeah. We have some dear friends that I met, Jennifer, from way back when we went to school, and they were the ones who introduced us to Biltmore. We went there, and I was pregnant, and I remember being absolutely just blown away. But
you can never re-see it for the first time again, but when you see it for the first time, you are gobsmacked.
Yes, absolutely. And then I've been back a few times since. And so I've heard the history. I've seen it, I've heard it, but it is so interesting to me how only in doing this research and actually having to kind of process it myself do I fully understand it. And now I am more amazed by everything than ever. Yes. So I hope you find this history as fascinating as I do.
Oh, I know I will.
Most of us back in history class, we learned about that famous shipping and railroad entrepreneur, that industrialist, Cornelius Vanderbilt, often referred to as the Commodore. Okay, well, the man we're going to focus on, George Washington Vanderbilt, was Cornelius's grandson. He was born in 1862 in New York, and just as a note of clarification, a lot of sources refer to him as George Vanderbilt II, and I don't know why.
Okay.
But the Biltmore website did not, so I'm just calling him George Vanderbilt.
That's fine with me.
And by the way, the Biltmore website is amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really nice.
Amazing. So many pictures, so much history, so much information. So a huge shout out to them. A lot of this information came from them, although of course I did use other sources as well. But here we are. We've got George Vanderbilt. He has been born into one of, if not the wealthiest family in America. He's living the good life.
Wealth like you and I could not even fathom.
You are exactly right.
And another trivia point is they did not have to pay taxes back then, because when I was there at one point, Brian and I were asking something about when he would go on these trips to Europe and order books, he would just have them sent home. And we would say, how much were these things? And they said, well, we really don't have a record of it because they didn't have to pay taxes. So there was no, he just threw away his receipts. So who knows? Who knows?
Goodness, no telling. So in 1888, George visited Asheville, North Carolina for the first time. I believe he was with his mom and was absolutely taken by the beauty of the area. And as you do as a 25 or 26-year-old bachelor, he decided, hey, this would be a great place for a home, my country home.
There you go. My country home. Yes. A little country home.
So he started buying up the land for what would become Biltmore. He also hired Richard Morris Hunt to design and build the home. Famous, well-known architect. And Frederick Law Olmsted to design the gardens and grounds.
We have talked about him before, too.
Yes, amazing. So they started construction in 1889, and here's what the website said about that. Quote, George Vanderbilt's 250-room French Renaissance chateau is a true marvel, the largest undertaking in residential architecture in the nation. Over a 6-year period, an entire community of craftsmen comes together to create America's premier home and the remarkable gardens and grounds that surround it.
I can't believe it only took 6 years.
It is amazing. It really is. So the house was finished in 1895, and George Vanderbilt officially opened Biltmore to his family and friends on Christmas Eve, which is one of the reasons why Christmas is always such a big deal for them.
Yes.
Because from the beginning, Christmas was big. It was decorated to the hilt. There were presents being given out. I mean, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Even in the very first one.
Yes.
Now, here's how the estate was described on the National Forest Foundation website. Quote, once completed, the mansion had 4 acres of floor space, 250 rooms, 34 bedrooms, 43 bathrooms, and 65 fireplaces. The basement had a swimming pool, gymnasium with changing rooms, bowling alley, servants' quarters, kitchens, and more. In addition to the lavish home, the estate included 125,000 acres of grounds, designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, the creator of New York's Central Park and the father of American landscape architecture.
I think that he wanted it to be a resort, what we would call a modern-day resort, where you could go there and you didn't have to leave because all the entertainment, all the things that you would want to do were actually on the grounds.
It was self-contained.
Yes.
Anything he would want.
Yep.
Yes. So George continued his bachelor life in his mansion, although he did like dogs. And at least one dog shows up on their blog on the Biltmore website. It was a St. Bernard named Cedric. He's adorable.
Yes, he's their little mascot, isn't he?
I didn't even notice that.
I think you can buy Cedric merchandise.
Oh, love it. Well, and we have some pictures in our show notes we'll include. But in 1898, George married Edith Stuyvesant Dresser in Paris. Edith was a descendant of Peter Stuyvesant, the first governor of Dutch colonial New York. So they honeymooned in Italy.
As you do.
As you do. And then they returned to live at Biltmore.
I don't think she had seen the home yet.
Really?
I don't think so. I think I remember reading that when she arrived, she had not seen it yet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be a crazy
Impressive
way to...
Here, honey, here's our house.
Oh, okay. So 2 years later, in August of 1900, they had their only child, Cornelia Stuyvesant Vanderbilt. She was born in the Louis XV room at Biltmore House.
I've seen it.
And the website comments, quote, it is a celebrity birth even by modern standards.
Really?
Oh, yeah, big deal. This is the wealthiest family. So they had an interesting near miss in 1912 that you may have heard about. George and Edith had tickets to sail on the Titanic, but they decided last minute to sail instead on the sister ship, the Olympic. According to a Parade magazine article, and a couple of other sources agreed with this, it was because someone they knew warned them that maiden voyages often have problems.
Oh.
So they made that change in their plans a week before the
Wow.
departure date.
Wow.
Now, here is a tragic side note. This is actually not something I heard when I was on a tour, but this was something that was in both the Encyclopedia Titanica and a Blue Ridge Now article. They said, this is so sad, that one of their servants, Edwin Wheeler, who was 24, was killed on the Titanic when it sank. And what happened was he went with their luggage.
Yeah.
So he was a second-class passenger on the Titanic, there basically just to make sure their luggage made it safely, and he did not make it.
That is so sad.
So sad. And another sad note follows. George only made it 2 years past that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed away in 1914 at the age of 51. Now, you knew how he died. You
Yes.
remembered.
Yes.
I found the original newspaper articles. You guys, this was so sad and so dramatic. This is directly from newspaper articles at the time. George W. Vanderbilt, 52, that is actually a typo, he was only 51, multimillionaire, philanthropist, and sportsman of international reputation, died here at 1 o'clock this afternoon from heart failure following an operation for appendicitis Tuesday. His death came suddenly. Although seriously ill for some time, Mr. Vanderbilt had sustained the operation and continued to show signs of improvement until complications unexpectedly arose. Previous to their appearance, no alarm had been felt for his recovery, and physicians said his condition was improving. Now, a different article said this is how it happened. Mr. Vanderbilt was thought to be recovering from an operation performed about 10 days ago, and little fear for his condition was felt. But when he began to cough suddenly, Dr. James F. Mitchell, who was in the room, knew that the millionaire was dying. Dr. Mitchell started toward his patient, but Mr. Vanderbilt waved him aside. The dying man fell back upon his pillows and held out his arms to his wife, whispering, "Edith." She placed her arms about his neck, and he breathed his last in her embrace.
Gosh, that's sad.
Isn't that awful? But I had never heard that story before. And for the newspapers to report it that way, I was like, oh my goodness. And I think it said something about their relationship too. Yeah, so sad. But it was also interesting to see that.
Yes, we have got to
Because-
stop this, Candy. We have got to stop doing episodes that art imitating life and then life imitating art. We just got to stop it.
Yeah.
We got to stop.
Because you guys, I'm sitting here. Let me see.
Okay, let's let them know the order of events. Usually we record in order, and we were waiting on some material for Biltmore, so we decided to record this last. So when you hear the next two episodes next week, we're going to be in such happy spirits, and it's going to be like there's the Christmas Eve episode and the one before that. We're just so thrilled and happy, and then 2 days after we record, what happens to you?
Yeah. Well, and since we were going to note timing,
Yeah.
this is actually now 10 days post. Exactly.
Gosh.
Okay. But yes, 2 days after I recorded last time.
You cannot.
It was 2 days after I had gone somewhere with my sister. She had they had a work function and they had extra tickets. And so I went and I ate a big meal. And that night when I started feeling very poorly, I thought, well, food
Yeah,
poisoning.
that's what we thought it was, yeah.
Yeah. And also I should clarify, Kirk had a stomach bug 2 weeks earlier and my symptoms were actually mirroring that as well. So I was like, it could be either one. But I was feeling so terrible with terrible stomach cramping and then nausea. And then I did become violently ill for several hours, like I've never been in my life. And so I was sick the whole that Monday, which was Veterans Day. Yeah.
Yep.
And so much so that my stomach hurt the next couple of days, and it was even kind of hard to the touch. And I was like, well, this has never happened to me before, but I've never been this sick before.
Right.
And I kept Googling. Yes, you can have soreness afterwards. You can even do a little damage to yourself, So I was concerned about that, to be honest. So I make it through the week, noticing that I still feel terrible, and I start to register that the worst pain is in my lower right abdomen. And we had started to talk about, do I need to go to immediate care? And I did not go until Saturday morning. I marched myself
I can't believe
in
you waited
there.
that long.
Well, I shouldn't
no,
have.
I
think
can't
the
believe you
lesson to everyone else
powered
is
through.
don't wait that long. Yeah, I went into the immediate care at 9:30 in the morning, and I was having emergency surgery in the
That night.
hospital that night. I got very lucky, a super skilled surgeon who, bless their hearts, I know many people are not fortunate and they have to do a more difficult version of the surgery where you have to be opened up. He was able to do it laparoscopically for
Say
me.
what it is. You have not said yet what you had.
It was an appendectomy, but it was It was kind of gross. But there was gangrene. There was an abscess. It had burst. There was some peritonitis, if that's how you say it. So it was just an ugly situation.
Yeah.
Really ugly. So I ended up staying in the hospital through Tuesday, and I got to go home with a drain tube, which I got out yesterday.
Gosh. Yeah. And she is here today for you all. She is amazing.
Not on her game, though. I keep messing up.
That's okay. That is okay. They will never know.
But yes, so I'm relating.
Yeah, I told her that she gets to be in a club with, I talked about on the Houdini episode that this happened to me when I was, 9 or 10. And so she's now in a club with me and Houdini and Oswald Chambers and now George Vanderbilt. But you said it was actually Houdini that convinced you to go, right? That's what you told me, is remembering him and what happened to him.
Well, once I started, thinking, I just started suspecting this has to be my appendix.
Yeah.
It just has to be. And I'm like, I've got to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So little side note there.
Yeah, sidebar, but we are so happy she is back. We're happy she's healthy. We're happy to have her with us. I'm just like,
thank you.
I'm very emotional about it, but
Thank you. I will tell you that as I was doing this research, I sent you like all
I know
caps.
you did.
Like, do you know how George died?
And I had forgotten. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The connection.
Woo. All right. And that 10 days kind of hit me too.
Yeah.
All right. But happy.
Yes,
Happy. All right. So, okay, happy for me, but for Cornelia, this was back into the story. This was very sad. She is just a teenager at this time. She's not yet 14 when her dad passed. This left Edith to carry on leading the family and continuing this legacy of philanthropy that George and his family had clearly established. And Edith is right in there because that's what her family was about too.
Yeah.
But she was a very strong woman who apparently jumped right in, not only to help run Biltmore, but she also continued to show a lot of leadership in the community in many different ways. But one notable thing she did was related to forestry. The Biltmore website notes that, remember how many acres of land they owned? She sold approximately 87,000 acres of their estate to the United States Forest Service for less than $5 an acre, and that is now Pisgah National Forest, which includes the Cradle of Forestry, and it's one of the first national forests east of the Mississippi River. The National Forest website comments, quote, "What was once part of the massive Biltmore Estate grounds is now the Pisgah National Forest. Without the early management and leadership of the Vanderbilt family, American forestry would not have had its early beginnings."
That's phenomenal.
I loved that. And kudos, Edith. So, moving on though, in 1924, Cornelia married the Honorable John Francis Amherst Cecil, first Secretary of the British Embassy. They married at All Souls Church in Biltmore Village, with Edith escorting her daughter. And he resigned from his job and he took over working the estate.
And he stayed with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cornelia and John had two sons, one in 1925 and one in 1928. She gave birth to them in the same room where she was born, which is crazy to me, but love it. In 1930, during the Great Depression, when times were so hard, the Cecils supported the town by partnering with the Asheville Chamber of Commerce to spur tourism. In the spring of 1930, they opened portions of the Biltmore house to the public. First time this had been done, which started that ball rolling. It was, again, a community service, but it was also a way to bring in a little income because they did need to preserve their own home.
Right. I think maybe something people don't realize is this is a family-owned home. The government doesn't own it. This is everything they do is...
It's them. It is on them.
Yep.
And I will tell you, we'll come back to this later, but it was years and years and years and years before they ever made any profit from opening their home.
That's hard.
Yeah. Well, around 1932, Cornelia moved to New York while John stayed behind with Biltmore. Reportedly, she wanted to pursue her interest in art, and she also longed for more excitement. But this was basically a separation in their marriage as well. Yeah. And it was also in 1932 that the Biltmore Company was organized to manage the estate, with the three primary leaders being Edith, John, and Judge Junius Adams. In 1934, John and Cornelia divorced, very friendly. Cornelia moved to Europe, and John remained at Biltmore. Again, he continues to run the estate, and he remains a prominent figure in several of the community organizations. The boys continued to spend time with both parents. It sounded to me as though Cornelia, remember, she went off to Europe, and the boys did go to boarding school in Europe. So it read as though she saw them at school, but it definitively stated they spent their summers at
With
Biltmore
Dad.
with Dad. Yeah.
And I do believe also that Edith lived in the home, and you would think that the home, and this is just my memory, so I could be wrong, but you would think that the home would be big enough for everybody to live there. But I do believe that when they got married, when Cornelia got married, Edith moved out because it's now your home. And so I think she went to a home on the property, but she was not in the Biltmore itself.
I didn't run across that. I do know that she remarries and
Edith or Cornelia?
Edith.
Okay.
And she would split her time between Washington, D.C.
nice.
and the Biltmore.
Okay.
Yeah. In World War II, in 1942 to be specific, Biltmore was asked by the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. to store a large number of priceless artworks
This is cool.
in their music room because a lot of artwork was getting stolen and destroyed.
Yep.
They said yes.
They hid it.
They hid it. Those pieces, these priceless works, are tucked in their music room for 2 years. And people, when they would come in, would have no idea what's on the other side of this wall. But they returned those pieces safely in 1944. Also during this time, John left for a period of several years to serve in England's Ministry of Information. He stayed on past the end of the conflict to ensure a smooth transition. And then he came right on back to Biltmore. And I cannot stress how many great things they said about him and what he added to the estate and the way it was run and the dignity and the beauty and just the different
That's a beautiful
aspects
thing,
of it.
not to be born into the family, but to adopt this family and the family's home and commit your life to running this family's home.
Absolutely. And everybody liked him. He was described as being kind and down to earth, although he had high standards. Here's a quote from the site. At annual Christmas parties, he often portrayed Santa Claus emerging from one of the vast fireplaces in the banquet hall with a giant bag of gifts over his shoulder, much to the delight and wonder of the children in attendance. This website, it's in the bio section, I believe, where they're talking about him specifically. They share different things, and it ends with this. Today, we continue to honor John Cecil's contributions to the legacy of Biltmore. His care and contributions during his lifetime helped the estate remain private and intact until his sons were able to take on management of the estate's successful dairy operation, George, and the preservation of the historic property, which was William. So that leads us into this next piece. And by the way, we're kind of bringing this to a close, guys. Both Edith and John passed away in the 1950s. Edith was in 1958, and I believe John was in 1954. So again, they said that the boys then had to step up. So it was around 1960 when William Amherst Vanderbilt Cecil left his banking career in New York, and he returned to Biltmore to join his brother George in managing the estate. And from the very beginning, William was very focused on self-sufficiency and preservation. He wanted to preserve the history. He wanted to make this estate grow. And it was in 1963 that one of their first big achievements came when they were officially nominated as a National Historic Landmark. And he had big plans. In 1971, William was the one who really got those first grapevines planted just below Biltmore House, worked on that project for over a decade, and in 1983, the Biltmore Estate Wine Company was established, and a state-of-the-art winery opened to the public in 1985. And people were like, you can't do this in Asheville, North Carolina. This is not going to fly. And he was like, yes, I can. And he brought in experts to make sure it did.
Yeah.
So in 1995, exactly 100 years after his grandfather George Vanderbilt had opened Biltmore House, William retired, and his son, Bill Cecil Jr., took over as president and CEO of the Biltmore Company, a position he is still holding to this day. And then to quickly run through some of the expansions that have happened, 2001, the Inn on Biltmore Estate opens. 2005, the Market Gardener's Cottage, which was the first of the cottages on the Biltmore Estate, opened to overnight guests. In 2010, Antler Hill Village opened. That is this huge shopping exhibition space.
Yes, in the
dining,
back.
yes, dining, all kinds of outdoor activities. It's a nice place for tourists. 2015, the Village Hotel on Biltmore Estate opened. And then, sadly, 2017 was when William passed away. He was 89 at the time. And his son, again, the current president and CEO, made this statement. My father's legacy is immeasurable for our family. He will always be remembered for his leadership, vision, and dedication to Biltmore. He had the foresight to do what everyone thought was impossible. He spent many years in devotion to the preservation of Biltmore, determined to make the estate self-supporting by developing its appeal for tourism. In 2017, Diana, who they called Denny, Cecil Pickering, she is the sister to Bill, the current CEO. She basically upped her role. She was already vice chair of the board of directors, but she moved into the head chair position.
Okay.
So the brother and sister
Are running the place.
Are running the place. You said it. Privately owned, privately run. And then the last couple of notes here on their expansion, 2021 was when the Dairy Foreman's Cottage, the second of the cottages on the Biltmore Estate, opened. And in 2022, the Linehouse Cottages opened. That brings us back to the present and where the Biltmore is post Hurricane Helene. So they have been very open. They have put statements on their website trying to keep everyone informed. This comes directly from Biltmore itself. Biltmore Estate reopened its doors on November 2nd in a display of community resolve as Asheville and Western North Carolina continue their healing journey after Hurricane Helene. As with the entire region, conditions vary by location across the 8,000-acre property. Biltmore House and the conservatory, winery, gardens, and overnight properties received minimal or no damage from the storm, and significant efforts have been made to welcome back visitors in time for the holiday season. And then in a different place, they offer a response to Helene by saying they escaped a lot of things that their neighbors did not.
Yeah.
So listen to what they've done. As our teams and community continue together on the road to recovery, we are inspired by the progress we see all around us. We are forever grateful to all who came to our region's aid at a time of unprecedented need. Having established the $2 million Biltmore Relief Fund for WNC and reopened the estate for Christmas at Biltmore, we remain committed to supporting our region's recovery.
Yeah. And the people in the community are so grateful for Biltmore. If you go to their website when they release stuff like this, if there is any negativity from any outsiders, if anyone kind of says anything against them, they will jump. The locals will jump to Biltmore's defense and say, you have no idea. You are not here. You do not know what they are doing for this community.
Absolutely. Because not only are they straight up saying, here's a $2 million fund that we're putting out there, they're one of the region's biggest employers.
Yeah.
So opening is not just to bring in money for themselves.
Right. It's to support their employees.
Yes, it is to give people jobs.
Yeah.
It is to bring tourists to the region, which will support the other businesses that are there, lodging and dining and shopping.
That's a big responsibility.
Yes, they have made it very clear. It has always been their goal and their legacy to try to be part of their community, to try to support their community, and they feel compelled to do it during this devastating time as well. So if you go to Biltmore,
which we encourage you to do if you
we
can.
highly recommend you do. There are so many things you can enjoy. You can enjoy Christmas at Biltmore.
It's
which
so
is
beautiful.
It is. The estate, all the surrounding areas on the property, like Antler Hill, are decorated so beautifully. There's so much to do. They have offerings like the candlelight Christmas evenings. Just gorgeous. Of course, you always have a choice of tours you can take of the house and the grounds. There are other activities you can do. I did not know this until I did this research. The Biltmore Estate Winery is a huge deal. It is actually the nation's most visited winery.
Really?
Yes. People go there just for that. So it's open. You have shopping. You have lodging. You have restaurants on site. And of course, Asheville's and the surrounding area have those things too. You can support the local community by eating and shopping and lodging at some of those places as well.
I can't remember what the building is called, but they also have a building where you can go and see. This is where we saw Van Gogh. You know, the exhibits, the traveling exhibits. They have a bonus thing that you can go and tour that as well.
Yeah, we saw Downton Abbey there.
Yes, I
several
wish I
years
could
ago.
have seen that.
That exhibit, the one that's going on right now, is Chihuly at Biltmore. It runs until February 2nd of 2025.
They extended it.
Yep, and it features the works of the very famous glass artist Dale Chihuly.
Cool.
So, if you are interested, again, we highly recommend you go if you are able. Go to the Biltmore website. You will see the special packages they offer. You will see there are discounts for certain things, such as military or senior citizens. Sometimes they have things like if you buy this ticket, you can go to this event at night and then tour the grounds for free the next day. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can do. There's a discount on being a season pass holder right now. So before we go to the break, we just want to encourage you to maybe take a few minutes, go check it out. Go check out the website right now.
That's one of the reasons we wanted to do this episode early in December, so that you could, if you were looking for, maybe instead of gifts, you thought, hey, as a family, we want to do something together. Not only are you going to go and experience a beautiful home and have a wonderful time, you're also going to be helping the community.
Right. Right. Well, that was, I think, fascinating, but not super lighthearted. We're going to lighten the tone a little bit when we come back from break, because I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see this yet. If not, you'll want to as soon as you hear us talk about it. There is a delightful movie out right now called A Biltmore Christmas, and Ashley and I are going to talk about it after the break.
Yay! As you may have discovered by now, we are clearly big fans of the Biltmore Estate. But it made us wonder, with over 160 episodes in our back catalog, what are some of your favorite topics we've covered? Is it Nora Ephron, Famous Photographs, Jaws, Smokey and the Bandit, Dark Highway, The Bitter Blood Murders? While we take a short break for family time, Scandal Water will continue with our January theme of fan favorites, during which we will replay 4 of our most popular episodes. The twist? Each will have a new intro, and one of the voices you hear might just be yours. So choose your favorite episode from any of our 4 seasons and send a written message or audio clip to scandalwaterpodcast@gmail.com telling us your name, where you're from, and why you'd love to hear this particular episode again. Or if you have a question or comment related to your favorite episode, we'd love to hear that too. Be sure to send them in by next Tuesday, December 17th. Happy holidays and cheers to a Merry New Year.
And we are back. So A Biltmore Christmas actually came out last year. It premiered on Hallmark Channel in November of 2023, but it is now on Netflix.
Yes, you actually talked about this movie in the Hallmark episode that we did last year, and I remember being like, I want to see this, because it had a time travel element to it, but I don't have the Hallmark Channel. So when my mom calls me and she's like, did you know A Biltmore Christmas is on Netflix? I was like, what? Stop everything. I'm watching it tonight. And I did.
Ah, love it. Well, we're going to share our impressions in just a few minutes, but first I want to give a little bit of a background about it. Here's a brief summary. The film centers on the fictional story about a modern-day screenwriter, Lucy Hardgrove, played by Bethany Joy Lentz, and Jack Houston, played by Christopher Polaha, the dashing lead of the beloved holiday movie His Merry Wife, first filmed at Biltmore House in 1947. The classic movie is scheduled to be refilmed at the iconic estate, but a mysterious hourglass intervenes, and Lucy is transported back in time to 1946 as the cast and crew prepare to remake the classic movie. Filmed at Biltmore in January 2023, this Hallmark movie features locations across the historic estate, including the gardens, conservatory, and the inn on Biltmore Estate. Biltmore's long history as a film location dates back to the golden age of Hollywood, but for the first time, Biltmore House has a central role in the storyline of A Biltmore Christmas.
They are not kidding. It is not just central. It is. It is the third build star of this film.
Yeah. An article published by Southern Living just this past November 4th says everything in its title. We're calling it. A Biltmore Christmas is an instant Southern Christmas classic.
It is.
People love it.
It was delightful.
Yeah, their subtitle, this one will become part of your annual traditions.
I've already seen it twice.
Yeah, I have too. It's good. So the Biltmore website, again, you guys have to look at it. It is so good. It has a whole page dedicated to the movie. I'm not going to read everything to you, but I'm going to share a few pieces of trivia that they noted on their site. 300 Asheville area locals were hired as extras in the movie, but more than 8,000 people had submitted applications online to be cast as extras, which Hallmark producers said is the most they have ever received. 9 rooms inside Biltmore House were used for filming: the library, tapestry gallery, main hallway, staircase hall, vestibule, winter garden, banquet hall, the corridor around the winter garden, and the corridor behind the banquet hall. And 2 exterior locations directly attached to Biltmore House were also used as filming scenes, and they used 4 rooms at the inn on the Biltmore Estate. Biltmore is mentioned 9 times in the film, and it took 15 days of filming in order to do it.
That's
so
fast.
they were there at the Biltmore for 15 days.
That's Hallmark fast.
The fella who plays the lead, Christopher Palaha, spoke about how the enduring splendor of Biltmore is really thanks to the generations of the family who have run it. He shared in interviews that they got to spend some time with Chase Pickering, one of the great-great-grandsons of George Vanderbilt, who, as we've already gone through, George is the original owner of the Biltmore, the one who built it. Chase helps to run the estate along with his parents. It's such a family affair.
Yeah.
So this actor, Christopher, said he was on set every single day, and it was like being invited into their home, and they were the greatest hosts you'd ever want. They just opened up the property to us and took us skeet shooting and horseback riding, and we're like, this is what we offer here. This is what we can do. I want to show you everything.
Oh,
So, I will include a picture of the 2 lead actors with Chase Pickering.
That's
as
cool.
well. I know.
That's very cool.
I loved it. It makes me so happy that they're down to earth and welcoming like that.
well, I don't think they would have succeeded this long if they weren't, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, that brings us to the movie. And so we've already given a summary. So let's just go ahead and touch on a few of the things that stood out to us.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give some general. I didn't do a deep dive into this one because I knew we were going to be tight on time based on the history. So I've wrote a couple of just while I was watching it, very few points, and then at the end, if you want to wait, or I can talk about it now, I have 5 points about why I love this film.
Okay.
And a couple of them do have spoilers, but I will say if it is a spoiler.
Okay.
It's kind of important to why I love it. So I loved the black and white intro of the movie to set the tone of classic versus modern. I even love the color grade when she goes back in time because when she is back in the golden age of Hollywood, the color grading is golden, and when she's more modern, it's blue and has a more cool tone to it. I thought that was really cool.
Ooh, nice.
And I have to give a little shout out to Margaret in the film is the friend that she meets, and I wrote down Margaret is the extrovert who adopts an introvert because this lady loves this film. She loved the classic film. She loves Biltmore. She's just like smiling the whole time. She is so happy to be there. I almost felt bad for her that she didn't get to go back in time too.
She didn't seem to mind. She
No.
was just excited to be part of it.
She was. When she's like, this is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me. I'm like, Margaret, I feel you, girl. And then a couple notes. This is the last thing I wrote is I thought it was cool. The names that they use, like Ava Hayward, kind of a play on Rita Hayworth and Ava Gardner. Jack Houston could be John Houston, and almost every single leading guy is named Jack. That's just what they do. And then Claude Lancaster could be Burt Lancaster. I thought that was just kind of cool. And also clearly Ava Hayward was a model for Kate Hepburn because they call her box office poison, and this film is going to bring her back. And the films they kind of not spoof but played homage to, like The Bishop's Wife.
I had several notes about the same thing. I love that. We are movie buffs, obviously. We enjoy things like that. I don't think you would have to be a movie buff to enjoy what they did with their nods to
Classic Hollywood.
Right. Because to me, one of the biggest parallels was how they were pointing back to It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes, that too. Yes.
I felt like Jack Houston was channeling Jimmy Stewart. They had several of those parallels, like Trying to Earn the Wings, and they had a character Charlie instead of Clarence. And so I saw the same things you were saying, but I also was sitting there in my mind kind of analyzing, going, everybody's going to love this.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to have picked up on the fact that, this is supposed to be Rita Hayworth.
Right.
You're going to love it
You're
no
just
matter
gonna love
what. Yes. It was so good. It was so good. And this is a point I think that you'd already touched on as well. You did. You said the Biltmore was like the third build. If this show does not make you want to go to the Biltmore,
I know. Nothing will.
There may be something wrong. You might need to.
It's like, I need to go back. When can we go back?
I mean, there were so many aerial shots or sweeping shots of the exterior where you were just blown away. And then the interior. Oh my goodness, just absolutely stunning. It is so beautiful, so impressive. It's the best promo for Biltmore.
So you saying that, if you're ready for me to start on my 5 points about why I love this movie. My first point, these are in no particular order, this is just in the order they came to my brain, was the locations, because we actually get to see Biltmore decorated for Christmas. And Brian and I, when we were watching it, we really enjoyed trying to guess where they were filming, because some locations were obvious, like the library. That's obvious. But the others, we had to really kind of dig into our knowledge of the grounds to determine where are they at, where are they located. It kind of was a fun bonus to me. And speaking of Biltmore being the third build, I just really find it both kind of fascinating and this cool marketing technique, really, that they used Biltmore as itself in the film. Like, I'm wondering if this is the first time that a location has actually been the same location in a film. Because previously, I think they've been in Richie Rich and other stuff. They stand in for another location. But this is a Biltmore Christmas. You are seeing Biltmore. They talk about visiting Biltmore. Has that been done in any other home or location?
You mean a historic home in particular? Yeah, historic
home in particular, where you
that's interesting.
You were going to go to the Biltmore. We're talking about Biltmore like you and I would.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
That is interesting.
My number 2 is Jack Houston.
Oh, he was so good.
He was just like so sweet and kind, and his voice was like melted butter, and his overall demeanor was just really gentle. I felt like he was this really great romantic hero because he pursues her, but he isn't really pushy, and he kind of respects her boundaries. And I really like the scene where they just get to know each other, and that is shot, I'm pretty sure, outside the conservatory, where you can see on a bench. It's like at night, and they're just talking, and they look like they're genuinely having a good time talking to each other. It's a good, sweet conversation. One of the quotes is Lucy, the character, says to him, because he talks about how important it is for him to be a movie star. Like, this really means a lot to him, and it's his big break in this particular role is a big break for him. And she says, would you really give up what you love most in the world for someone else's happiness? Because they're talking about the end of this fictional film. And he says, I don't know, but I hope one day I love someone enough to find out. I was like, what a line!
I know.
What a line! That's gorgeous. And he just looks like he likes her. Not that he's lusty after her or anything physical. He just looks like, I am sincerely interested.
True romance.
True romance. And I thought, Hallmark. This is it, man. This is it.
I'm going to jump in really quickly. He is the actor I've referenced a few times, Christopher Poloha, and we're going to come back to him. So note what we just said. And
Okay.
Okay.
My last little note about that, about something that happens between them. I like that Lucy, the character Lucy, tells Jack the truth. There's a very pivotal moment, and he keeps kind of saying, like, where are you from? You know, that kind of thing. And she tells him the truth. And he helps her. He helps her, and he just says, I'm glad you came into my life, even if it was only for a little while. And you're just like, what a guy. Just what a guy. I mean, number 2, you're the reason to watch this, Jack. You just are. Okay, so my number 3 is just the plot. It was just sweet and gentle and fast-paced, and we're in and out of this movie in 90 minutes. I really appreciated that. And I liked that Jack and Ava get along. They were friends. There was no conflict there. And even the conflict with the pushy, the third guy, and he's not really the bad guy, I wouldn't say. There isn't really a bad guy. The circumstance is the bad guy, quote unquote, in this, but he's kind of spoiled, but he's even not that bad. You know, he's dealt with, and it's all fine.
Yeah, if I could piggyback on that for a second, throwing no shade at other Hallmark movies. You know, we did a whole episode on this. We've talked about the fact that they have taken criticism sometimes for being predictable or, you know, sometimes seeming like the same plot has been recycled. And we talked about people love them. You know, there are so many reasons why Hallmark movies are as popular as they are. So no shade at all. But I do think that this is one of the Hallmark movies that is very distinctly different in that regard. It does not have a predictable
miscommunication.
Yes, kind of formulaic plot, if you will, which tends to be what they sometimes take criticism for.
Right.
Yeah.
My number 4 is the spoiler, so hop ahead if you don't want to hear a spoiler. Number 4 and kind of 5 are too. So my spoiler is the ending is so good. The ending is just exactly what it should be. He comes to her and they live happily ever after. And he says there's a cover story that was planted. So I kind of wondered if Ava helped him back in the day. But I'm going to compare this to, and again, a spoiler for an even older movie. Brian has been after me to watch Somewhere in Time. And we finally sat down and watched it together. And midway through this film, I was like, this better have a happy ending. And he says, this may have been a mistake.
Oh.
So at the end, there is not a happy ending. There sort of is, but the way they get to the happy ending, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What? I just was so upset. But this was the right way. This gets our characters together the right way.
Okay.
I liked it a lot.
Satisfying.
It was satisfying. Okay, number 5. This is kind of a spoiler. We've already talked about that it's a time travel movie. I like that the time travel element was simple. It just was. She flips a magic hourglass at a magical time of year and it's done. I don't really care how time travel works in films. I know it's a story. I'm not really going to try this. So you say get in a car and go 88 miles an hour. Flip an hourglass. Think really hard about the time you want to be in, which is what happens in Somewhere in Time. He just thinks real hard and is there. And I'm like, go through a wardrobe. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's not a time, but they're like a different land. I am with you. I 100% believe what you were telling me and selling me. Let's get on with the story, which is what I tune into a time travel film for. And they did this. Flip, she's there. They still put a time lock on it. She only got an hour, or did she? And then flip, she's back. I loved it.
Yeah.
It's there. It's that.
Yeah. I was a fan too. You've said several points with which I wholeheartedly agree, but just to add a couple different thoughts, the costuming was gorgeous.
Oh my goodness, yes.
The acting was
really
great.
good.
Yes, the acting was on par. And I think that I appreciated the theme. The theme was very clearly, we should value the old ways. We should value traditions. And when you have a movie about a historical house, Biltmore, and then the plot and the setting are coming together so perfectly, I just felt like this is a well-crafted movie.
It really was.
Overall, it's just a well-crafted movie. Highly recommend you guys go watch it if you haven't already.
And FYI, Biltmore is not paying us to say any of this.
Oh,
We
of course
sound like
not.
we're doing an hour-long commercial for Biltmore because we are, but it's because we really love this place.
Genuine fans.
Genuinely.
Genuine fans, yes.
Armchair psychologist.
Well, I think that brings us to the armchair.
Okay.
So we have covered a lot about the Biltmore in this last, 45 minutes or an hour. But we started by saying there are a lot of beautiful, important historic homes out there. So what is it specifically about the Biltmore that makes it so special to you? What is it that touches your heart or makes you recommend it so highly to other people?
I don't know that this is going to be a fair answer because I have not been exposed to enough of the other historical homes to make a accurate, this is why Biltmore tops them all.
Okay.
I've been to a few in Louisville and I've been to one in Indiana that you and I have both gone to, but they did not have the grandeur that the Biltmore does. So it's already starting out with overwhelming you with its very presence. And I guess it goes back to the thoughtfulness and the family and their kindness. The more you learn about this family, the more you value them and their work ethic and how they give back to the community and how they protected the paintings, something that was important to our nation. So I guess it's just the family itself, and then the family and their values and their positive traits are reflected in the actual chateau itself.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I feel.
As I tend to do, I write a great question and then don't think about it in
But that's
advance.
more fair to me, because then it's like you throw it on me and now you have to answer your own quickly.
Well, I just came to an answer that I think might actually capture it for me. I love historic homes. I don't even want to compare because it's not like this is better than.
Yeah.
I don't mean it that way.
Yeah.
I mean what makes this stand out to me. And I think a lot of the historic homes that I've been to, I am fascinated by them because I am fascinated by the people who live there or the history that took place, but I am there very much as a learner. I am there to walk through, to get all the information I can, to see everything I can. I am a learner. And when I go to the Biltmore, I have so many emotions that are sentimental and family and heartwarming. Like, yes, I get to learn. There is history. There are beautiful things. But every time I've been there, I've also had these associations with Christmas and doing these activities with Kirk or other, friends or, just like I have these positive associations that are beyond just
The house itself.
the house itself and the history part.
Yeah.
And it is also the most impressive place I think I've ever seen.
Yep, you walk over that hill and you see it for the first time. It's amazing.
It is
Breathtaking.
absolutely amazing. So I thought I would end by going back to our actor, Christopher.
Oh, okay.
Do you know, after Hurricane Helene, he went to Asheville.
Did he?
He did. And he put up an Instagram post This is not all of it, but parts of what he wrote. I look so happy because I had an amazing day at Biltmore Estate today for so many special reasons, mainly to see firsthand that Asheville, North Carolina, while devastated by Hurricane Helene, is resilient and filled with hope and on the road to recovery. The folks at Biltmore House are open for business this Saturday, November 2nd, so this was prior to that, and have spent the last month helping and healing their surrounding community in truly unbelievable ways. So much loss. The stories of loss I heard in the last 48 hours have shook me. And he goes on to share people who've lost family members and people who've lost everything. And I won't read all that, but he goes on to say, the damage is real, but so is the hope and dogged determination that the community will come back stronger than ever. I met first responders today who put it all on the line to help their community. I heard about miners from Virginia who drove in equipment and opened up a road that would have otherwise been blocked for months. The stories of heroism and simple acts of kindness simply outweigh the stories of tragedy. That said, they can still use your help. Find a way to jump in if you can. And one way to help is by going there and supporting their tourism. And we can't recommend any place higher than the Biltmore at Christmas.
Yes, watch the film and then purchase your tickets and experience it yourself.
And with that, a huge cheers to the Vanderbilt family who have built and sustained this gorgeous estate all these years while also being important members of their community who value the people around them.
Absolutely.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show. Or you can become a supporter by making a donation through buymeacoffee.com/scandalwaterpod. Whether a single gift or a recurring monthly donation, it would go a long way towards supporting our work and allowing us to keep the tea brewing.
At our website, www.scandalwaterpodcast.com, you can submit questions or your own story ideas, access our sources and show notes, see the merch we offer for sale, and more. You can join the Scandal Water community through our Scandal Water Podcast Facebook page or follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Scandal Water Podcast.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown.
That's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reith, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.